NIO and onvo combined for 4,900 insurance registrations. That's for the week of February 24th through March 2nd. So only a couple of days in March. And just a few things I want to point out as we go through here. This probably represents the low point for the entire year for the insurance registration data. We should see things moving up and steadily up and maybe really skyrocketing by the end of the year. So let's see how that goes. I know during this time frame, the first couple of months last year in 2024 during Chinese New Year, people were very negative in suggesting the numbers were unacceptable, not strong enough from NIO. So I'm not going to be surprised if we have the same recurring theme play out. This is just onvo, the L60 with its trend. And again, one of the things I've noticed, it looks like the third full week of each month is when we see the biggest uptick on these numbers. So I'll be looking ahead to that later in March to see how those numbers look. Same folks who talk negatively about the numbers being down or quote unquote unacceptable, too low for NIO and onvo do not ever talk about the swap stations and just how many swap stations NIO has got out there, how many swaps actually take place, let's say during Chinese New Year, which is when NIO had a record number of folks. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. I've got that queued up a little later, but I want to keep moving forward here. This is January, February 2025. You've got NIO with just over 27,000. This is in the new car making brands. If we then move over and look at all NEVs, so not just pure BEV, which is where NIO actually should be compared to other companies, you've got all NEVs, so new energy vehicles, meaning some hybrids, some folks like Li Auto, who otherwise wouldn't probably make this list. But still, from January 1st through March 2nd, you've got NIO and onvo in the top, what I think number 14 and 16 respectively. And we haven't seen things ramp yet. So I'm excited to see what March has in store and ahead for us. This is something I wanted to highlight because NIO on their site, and I'll link it in the description. If you haven't seen it, you might want to check it out. There are a few tidbits that NIO offered here. For example, they have 3,201 power swap stations worldwide now. And I like this verbiage here. This is a little indicator for me that when they say in February, NIO opened one NIO house globally, and then they talk about deployment of power swap stations. When I hear that globally, I'm thinking, hey, this is a bit of a pivot point for NIO with the launch of the sub brands and expansion to continue. I think we're seeing NIO and we're going to see NIO shift into this global view and lens. And so I'm very curious how much awareness there will be for NIO, Firefly, and onvo, let's say by the end of this year in 2025. That's the first big picture short-term indicator for my long-term big picture time frame, which is market awareness. We're still very early in my mind anyway. This is also of note, NIO with its first power swap station in the UAE. And I saw folks talking about how it's air conditioned and how nice would it be to not even have to get out of the vehicle, to stay nice and cool and have it automatically swap out the battery. I think we're going to see ET9 and other NIO vehicles sell pretty well. It's not an enormous market, but I do think there will be some sales for NIO down there in the MENA region. Also, I'm actually going to skip down to, I'm going to skip that too. We may come back to that another time, but this is the point I wanted to make. Daily battery swaps exceeded 130,000 during Chinese New Year in China. And for 12 consecutive days, daily swaps exceeded 100,000. Not one person who has spoken negatively about the number of vehicles delivered or on the insurance registration side of things, not one of those people has talked about anything with respect to the NIO energy play and NIO and onvo and the swapping and how much more potential there is within that energy market that is largely unrecognized at this point. That is also one of the reasons I remain long-term big picture and not at all deterred by short-term stock price action. But I've got content on that as well if you want to check it out. Another quick hitter. I'm just trying to get as much condensed and offered in these videos as I can. I'll do a deep dive here in a longer video at some point. But for now, I just want to get this thing up and out. Have a great day or night whenever you see it. And I'll see you all again very soon.